This podcast is a collaboration between Costard and Touchstone Productions and the Tales From The Crypt podcast. Hi, it's Alan, and welcome to another episode of the How Not to Make a Movie podcast. You could call this one the How Not to Make a Monster Movie podcast. One of the pleasures of working in this business is you get to work with some really talented people who also happen to be really nice people. One of the nicest people we've had the pleasure of working with over the years is one of the masters of special effects, Todd Masters. Among Todd's feature credits are the new Firestarter, Corrective Measures, Child's Play, Bordello of Blood, Demon Knight, Underworld, Blair Witch. Todd's film credits go all the way back to Night of the Creeps in 1986. Todd's TV credits, of course, Tales from the Crypt, Carnival, Vampire Diaries, R.L. Stein's Haunting Hour, Fringe, Hemlock Grove, 6 Feet Under, True Blood, Legion, and right now Todd's working on Yellow Jackets. Of course, you all remember Todd from the first season of the How Not to Make a Movie podcast. Well, as we say in the horror business, he's back. Well, we can't tell you how glad we are that you're here, Todd.
Are we showbiz now?
Yes, we suddenly segued right into showbiz as we were all sitting here. We might as well. So yes, we're so glad that you could be here to do this episode of the How Not to Make a Movie podcast. But of course, we're also really glad that you're here. You've been going through a rather hellacious health issue that we were just talking about, the fact that it's an amazing story. It's an amazing story. But it's up to you at that time that you want to tell it, when to tell it. I'm simply giving our audience a heads up. There's an amazing story coming when Todd is ready to tell it about this health issue that he has been going through and the thing that caused it.
And it wasn't Alan, and it wasn't Gil.
We swear to God. We swear. Our hands on wherever.
And it wasn't a sex change either.
It wasn't. Not this time.
Not for you, perhaps.
I had the Crypt Keeper fused to my. I don't know.
I hate when that
it's a weird, fucked up. So
let's start with the important part. You just said you're doing well, and you feel, when you said you feel good again, you feel like, all right, back to how Todd was, probably not, but
no, I feel like the last 10 years was somebody else, I just feel like I just have my spring to my step again, and I can think straight again, and I'm not screaming in pain as much as I was, and I can actually eat. I can't quite eat normal food, but I can eat a version. I can eat like normal food for, what we should have been like maybe 100 years ago. I could eat like the raw, good protein, solid foods. It's just all the modern processed stuff still hurts, so I stay away from all that.
Yeah.
Like I have a really weird situation that is very much like a Tales from the Crypt episode, actually. What I went through, and we were just talking offline. It's so funny. I'm like, oh shit, we're on the stage now. We got to talk about things and not really talk about things. And Alan and Gil were kind of cool about not ambushing me, so that was kind of good.
Not on this topic. No, certainly not.
I'm sort of joking.
You have to tell this story, and if you don't want to tell this story, it cannot be told. And like I said, it was just something that, if you do, great. If not, there are 1,000 other things we could talk about.
We got nothing else to talk about. I'm it's still pretty fresh, so I'm still hurting from it. So I'm gonna give it a little bit of a breath, I think, and enjoy my cleaned up body and brain for a little bit before I go dark again and think about all this horrible shit.
Sounds good to me. And talking about difficult times, let's revert back to our difficult times together.
What a segue. You are the segue king. Yes, those easy days.
Yeah, those easy days when We wanted to kill you all the time, but somehow.
Yeah. How did I not die from that, but died from something as simple as that.
Were you on the show for Billy Friedkin's episode? Were you?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was on the show before you guys.
Yes. But what I mean, but by then you were the full-time.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
That was a complicated gag at the end of on a dead man's chest.
There you go. Yeah.
There was the gag because the whole thing was that was it the Heavy D was a tattoo artist from Haiti. He had given his eye had been taken out. Baby Doc Duvalier had taken out his eye with a grapefruit spoon because he hated the tattoo.
Wow, what a memory.
Yeah. Well, I remember the line because it's funny. Entertainment Weekly quoted it and they gave it a very positive review.
Wow. Okay. It's a great episode.
You do. You remember your good reviews. Now the script was credited because he wrote it to Larry Wilson.
Okay.
But Larry did not write that line. I wrote that line. And it was great to see Entertainment Weekly give it a great review, but they gave they gave credit to that line to Larry.
Well, you're the producer. You get all the credit. Well, it was a really great episode. Of course, like all Tales from the Crypts, I think we prepped it in 5 days, and for our department, making monsters and makeup effects and all that shit. That's just not enough time. We never had enough time on a Tales from the Crypt episode, but we committed. And my team always gave 110% to pull this stuff off. And I don't know, Gil, I think you only fired me like 4 times over the course of so many seasons.
Is that all?
I think so. I remember 2 specifically, and I don't know how I came back from it.
I don't think we ever fired you once. What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, not officially, but there was,
might have been talk.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
cheap on the movie set.
It's something about that era. We want to come back to Dead Man's Chest, but just real fast on the whole kind of, the way we got that show done was we all respected and loved each other, but we also had this kind of almost like brotherly competition going on that, Gil, you really inspired me to do to really push, and Alan, your creativity was so fucking out there that you allowed us to just get a little weird and wild, which I thought was really cool.
It was the lack of drugs.
Well, right, and we figured out later how much of a mistake that was.
That's right.
His was the lack of drugs, and me was not knowing better.
not having me yet. But it was tough, and everybody was challenged to get the work done in such a short period of time, because we knew we weren't making TV, we were making HBO.
Yes.
And we also felt, I mean, and I think this really came down from you two, that we really felt we were like making little movies, and they had to be like feature movie quality because we had these great talents coming in. We just couldn't be some podunk warehouse TV bullshit production. We needed to kind of come up with crazy ideas and do them. And like,
once you've raised the bar, one of my fondest memories of working with you, Todd, was trying to figure out how to do the butt steaks in What's Cooking.
What's Cooking, the squid episode.
Yeah.
The working out how to make that shot look like he was really, I mean, a lot of work went into making that effect look perfect. And
there's kind of a blooper actually in it, believe it or not. I mean, I noticed it. I don't know if anybody else noticed it.
Tell. It's
well, that famous shot where Judd swings in and pulls out a perfect steak. We had it pre-sliced, and I can't remember what we did, but we had it ready to go. And when he pulls it out, he actually pulls out some of the stuffing of the dummy. You can see this white puff of polyfiber, fiber fill. And nobody gives a shit. They just think it's steak fat or something.
Oh,
like
yeah.
But every time I see it, I'm just like, why didn't we just do that again?
It was the accompanying mashed potatoes. Come on.
Right. Exactly. It was my mind going. But yeah, I mean, all that stuff, I think we've already done this story on other podcasts, but meat came in, 100 pounds lighter than we wanted
Oh,
to.
yeah.
That whole craziness. Well, anyway, we're gonna just meander around all sorts of episodes here, aren't we?
Yeah.
There's no order to this podcast.
Well, we'll start here, but we also want to talk about what you're doing now,
Oh,
because really we want to talk about, in keeping with what the show's about, how not to make a monster movie.
every day it's another lesson, but the lessons I learned on Tales are things that I preach every day.
Of all the effects that you did on Tales, which is the one that's your favorite
of the series?
Yeah.
I still love the Steve Buscemi eyeball. I mean, that really shouldn't have worked the way it did. It worked great. Dave Schneider made this little bladder filled eyeball, and we put it in a little prosthetic socket right on top of Steve's actual eyeball, because I originally, Gil, I don't know if you'll recall this, but I originally went to you begging to do a fake head for this scene, because not that we had the money at the time, but that was the only way I could figure out how to get an eyeball to come out of a skull, was not to have the actor there, but to have a fake
If I remember correctly, the first time you came to me, you wanted a real skull. You said there are many people on the crew we can dispense with.
Right. Buscemi's career was going nowhere. Yeah, we could just
use that. Right. I need that eye. and I said, absolutely not.
Can we shoot at the last thing just so we don't have to use them anymore?
Right.
No. So I think it was a budget thing. We cut the head and went back to the shop, and I went to Dave Schneider, and he was still is a very smart prosthetic artist. And he came up with this like flattened pancake eyeball thing, and it worked perfectly. And the thing slides down Buscemi's cheek like a trailing a little slug trail. Oh, yeah. It's just awful. And at the end of it, the crew was just like aghast. They were just silent that the thing looked so disgusting right in front of them. And Lee Webb's like, that's lunch. And we all went to lunch, which I hope was meatballs, but
he meant literally that was lunch.
Yeah, right. Hey, that's all we had to that day. But that was a good one. There was so many fun things we did. I'm really glad none of that's on 4K or Blu-ray, because that's pretty rough stuff, with today's televisions and stuff. But it was my makeup school. It was me trying to figure out all that shit. I had done stuff before Tales from the Crypt, but nothing to that speed or intensity, like 3 old age makeups in a week, stuff like that.
I do have additional fond memories of heading back into your department to sit down with you in a couple of pathology textbooks.
Yeah.
Looking for mayhem to create.
What can we do next week?
What would be what could we do to people that just hasn't been done before, that would be just amazingly disgusting?
Weirdly, I think that's where you and I connected, was in those books, because
as we sat there cackling like two just
naughty
little
disgusting school children. Your father was a dentist, wasn't he, or something like that? Surgeon. So you had an affinity for that kind of like just more. I want to know more texture, and which of course inspired my artist to kind of gross you out.
My dad, being a surgeon, he got a lot of trade journals, JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association. There was one that was really for surgeons, and the artwork was remarkable. It was so detailed. It was by a guy named Frank Netter, I think, if I remember his name correctly. And just remarkably detailed. It was detailed under normal circumstances, and then. Right. Man, the diseases or the trauma, and it was a kind of flesh pornography.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what Tales is, in a weird way. I mean, that's kind of what it is. I mean, horror film watchers want that detail. They want to be shown and told things that are a little taboo, something that might be frightening, but also kind of outside the cultural borders. And Tales, that's why I think Tales is still popular now, is that we kept coming back. They're a little more morality plays, but they're also, delivering the goods. and you don't
that
really
was
get a
always
lot of
that was always a key element, the morality play, the fact that most of the time the bad guy was going to get his her or its comeuppance in the most ironic, disgusting way possible.
And you knew it, and you wanted it, and you expected it, and it's like that whole thing. We all knew that we had to hit those points. It wasn't like we were going to pan away.
But the whole point of TV, what the whole dynamic of a TV show, and it's very different from a feature film, in that a TV audience goes for familiarity, and it is in a sense the repetition. Hey, that's why Dick Wolf is a staggeringly wealthy man.
It's the McDonald's theory,
Yeah,
you get what you expect, and you for some reason want more of that.
The Big Mac should be, and that Big Mac should be the Big Mac wherever you buy it, anywhere on the planet.
Right, and our effects should look like a Big Mac. Wait a minute, I'm screwing up the.
You use from Alan's dad, the surgeon. I tried to use what my dad was, because when I was a kid, I worked in my dad's floor covering store. And I tried to make horror out of floor covering, but there's very little blood in floor covering.
There should be.
But it was the prices that were horrifying, Gil.
Unless you put it on the floor, unless you're trying to put it on the floor, because then your knees bleed.
That's true.
And when you're cutting it, usually my hand would bleed, but it wasn't good enough for the show.
I've always been curious about both of your guys' upbringings, because you guys both taught me a lot in
Careful.
Oh, sorry. Is this too much, Kissy?
No. Caught you in a good way or a bad way?
Well, no, it's you guys ran a pretty crazy ship there, but every department achieved it somehow, and not just a little bit. I mean, costumes were always hot, casting was always hot, makeup and makeup effects was always hot, props was great, art department kicked ass. And everybody was dealing with the same problem: 4-day prep or 1-day prep, no actors, all that stuff. And somehow we came out with a show that people are still talking about. It still blows me away. We do a ton of TV now, and every single one of them is like a little Tales from the Crypt, in the sense of its madness and the prep schedules. And it's kind of, they're all sort of that model. And none of them are as much fun, it feels. Okay, there's a couple that are as much fun as Tales, but I always think about Tales a lot when I'm doing shows. And
what other shows were a real pleasure for you to do?
We're doing Yellow Jackets now, which is a blast. Those people are really creative and a lot of fun, and that one kind of reminds me of the Tales energy. It's just I can't really talk about it because we're currently doing it, but it feels like the thing I always loved about the show is, here I am, makeup effects dude, but you guys let me into the creative process in a big way. You let me go, and for the most part, right? I don't, and to create the look of Tales, nobody was sitting on me. I was just like, here it is,
I think our collective problem with Tales, and it's the same today, and it's been the same for all these shows, is we had two enemies,
right?
And they were time and money.
Yep.
They weren't you, and they weren't the set director or the construction. There wasn't any of that. It was time and money. We had limitations of time and we had limitations of money, and yet we wanted to keep it at a certain level of quality that could compete with everything and anything else that was out there.
Achieved. And I'm actually saying it as a good thing. I'm saying that it's the way you guys were able to keep the creative, with all the plates spinning, which some of those plates were chainsaws too. It still was, the focus was on the show and the creativity and getting, I've mentioned this to you before, Gil. I always love being part of some of your meetings that maybe I wasn't necessarily supposed to be in, like the meeting you always had every episode about the shots. I've never seen anybody do that, and I still don't see anybody do that, really. Like talking to the director about the shots, the actual the fabric of the show. And I thought that was really clever to actually have that type of understanding, as a producer. I don't see a lot of producers with that kind of communication today. A couple of them here and there, but it's a very rare thing to be that creative and that organized as a producer and have fun with it. And that was
it also was interesting for me because we were dealing with some of the biggest directors in town.
I know.
And when I would say, I mean, Walter Hill, for example, who I love, Joel Silver once said to me, don't say anything to Walter about his script. He'll write it, he'll direct it. Just don't say anything to him. But Joel, I can't. I mean, that's not what I do. I have to say something. No, we're not with Walter, you don't. And so I couldn't keep my mouth shut. And I remember, I don't know if you remember this, Alan. He wrote a script and I read it, and there was something wrong with it. And it didn't flow. It didn't make sense to me. And on I think the first day of shooting or the last day of prep, I went to him and I said, backtracking, I said, Walter, I read the script and I'd like to ask you to just take a look at the flow from this scene to this scene, because
it was the one with Richard Jordan, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, I wonder if I could ask you tonight, when you have some time, if you could just look over how that flows, because I'm sure I'm missing something, but I'm a little confused. And and he looked at me, like a little odd. And I thought, oh God,
nobody.
There we go. I'm going to be dead meat.
Yeah. What the hell do the TV guys know about writing?
Yeah, exactly.
And the next day when we came to the set, I got this call saying, could I come over to his trailer? And I said, oh shit, what's going to happen now? And I came in. I said, hi Walter, what's going on? And he said, well, I looked at what your problem was yesterday, and I said, yeah, I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation. And he's cut me off, and he said, no, there isn't. You were absolutely right. Could you take a look at this? I rewrote it.
Wow.
And I think this answers your question. And I was like, and from that day on, Walter and I, we were just great friends. Yeah. We were just buddies, and I could say anything to him and he could say anything to me, because he knew it wasn't about, I'm trying to say, aha, I got one up on
no, it was a process issue. It was the mistake that they made in the second season. They never set it up like a TV show.
Right.
And so they didn't have any kind of a writing staff. They didn't have any organized way that, as far as I understand it, the scripts were being rewritten so that, the scripts came in whenever they came in, and they did them when they did them, and whoever rewrote them. There was no one minding the store or minding the franchise.
Right. Well, I mean,
the budget.
Every creative, real creative powerhouse that I've worked with always loves that. Even the ones with the biggest egos or perceived biggest egos, and they actually hate when people just, turn the other way and don't engage, because that's kind of it. That's what it's all about. Nothing's ever finished. It's just done.
Yeah.
But, the creative process is a process. And the more that you make it process, really, the more refined it gets.
Right. Well, that's kind of my point.
It becomes a diamond under the intense pressure of the getting it done, but all the people applying pressure to it.
Yeah. And if you can trust your heads of state, then what a machine. And that was, something I really took away from it, is that, this job isn't making rubber noses. This job is designing and creating this whole part of the show.
Yeah.
And I've always kind of taken it, I'm not a company that makes rubber noses. I'm a company that brings characters into stories and enhances projects, and people come to us because they like that we bring in a creative element. We're not just stamping stuff out.
We all had the pleasure and the honor of working for Bob Zemeckis. Yeah. And Bobsy is just the most remarkable collaborator.
For better or worse. He's intense. I love
incredibly
Bob.
Challenging, but just an incredible collaborator who really pushes you to really beyond maybe what you think you can do.
Totally. The best ones always do.
Yeah. And there's if there's not a point, I would say this about anything I've ever done. There's always a point at which I think, okay, this is the one where they find you out. This is the one you get revealed for the fucking heck you are.
Yeah, yeah, that's
It's,
true.
it's the moment of doubt where you think, oh man, yeah, no, this is the hill we die on. Jeez.
Right. Well, that's
And
being a professional
yeah,
artist. You know?
I've, yeah, I look forward to that moment because then I know it's real.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
No, you don't play in this, business, this industry, or at least live in it for long, unless you're willing to kind of, go head first and really engage and try to be part of the process. I mean, every time that I have done that, I've had success. Every time that I've just been kind of like the guy that designs the ear or the tooth or something, it just doesn't, there are shows that do that, and they're just not as fluid and as fun to watch. Demon Knight is like considered a fucking classic. Cracks me up. We just did that just a couple weeks ago, right? And it's like, people are regarding that, in the conversation of many other horror classics now, that's kind of crazy if you think about how that movie got made and how no time we did it. And, I guess that's the story for all films, but it's that kind of thing. Where
certainly, yes. If you had told us as we were making that movie, and just the craziness of making that movie, which is not the craziness of making Bordello, but if you had told us, hey, there will be screenings 25 years from now of this movie,
Right.
Yeah,
that would have been shocking.
I know.
Well, we should have learned, because it was the prelude for Bordello. And we should have learned from Demon Knight, run to the hills.
Yeah, right. Yeah, quit while we're ahead. See you
Right.
later. Well, I mean, it's kind of fun being an old bald guy now, thinking of all those years that we worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, making foam rubber shit for Tales. It's such a fun thing. I mean, we still kind of do it the same way, and so I guess it's not that far removed to think about, but that was a really special time.
We worked very hard and we partied hard.
I didn't actually. I was pretty good back then, actually.
Well, what all I mean is that when we celebrated, we celebrated well.
It was Ed Tapia. Yeah, he was the one. He was the one with all the crazy stuff. No, I'm kidding. Wild man. Wild.
All I can say about Ed Tapia is he was the best. He
really was
the best.
Man. He really was amazing. Yeah. I mean, I shouldn't say was. He
it still is amazing.
Yeah.
But I mean,
he was on that show. I mean,
he there couldn't have been a better person. Actually, that's not just the only person. There was so many people from those days that were fun to work with. Yeah. Were thorough. Were smart. I mean,
and collaborative. And they were
collaborative and made you want to go to work. Yeah. They were fun. So I mean, that's my.
True. I can't remember any days. Well, maybe at the end of the run in England, when going to work every day was just awful. Oh, get us out of here. But up until that point, going to work every day on Tales was the greatest gig in the whole wide world. Pinch me, man.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. No, we got to work with some amazing talent every single week. It was something different every single week. Just having such a great crew to work with. I mean, all the way from kind of every department was just solid and fun. It wasn't just like a bunch of workers. Everybody I guess we did party a bit.
So Alan, I guess I've never asked you this. So you didn't really like shooting in England? I mean, didn't you like
yes. Shooting in England was great fun. I think okay.
Didn't you like? Let me ask you some questions. Did you not like the catering on that double-decker bus, where one day, if you recall, we were in the office.
That is just someone called and said, I was not there for that. I didn't. It's funny that I had never heard that story before. But before you guys told it on the podcast, that was the first time I'd ever heard that story.
Where everyone was throwing up.
Oh, did you get a camera on
it? I was so deep up to my neck in other crocodile shit. God damn it.
I still wish I made it out there. Sorry.
You know,
Yeah.
we were.
I think I said to Bob Hoskins, so let's go to lunch. He said to me, are you crazy? I'm never eating on that thing.
Was that on Bob's show?
I'll buy you a sandwich.
Did that happen on Bob's episode?
I think so.
Oh my God.
Oh,
He was a
man.
lovely guy. Bob Hoskins was wonderful. What
Yeah.
a sweet man.
Oh yeah.
Until then.
No, he was always,
It
he was
bad.
fantastic. He was fantastic.
I kind of wish I went to England on that one, but I can't remember what we ended up doing. But yeah, sorry to see that one not go well. But that was tough. We had such a great nucleus going there for all those seasons. And then it was Vancouver and Bordello of Blood. And then it was England, or was it England first and then Bordello of Blood? It was England
No, it was
first.
Bordello and then England.
Oh, okay, all right.
At that, well, we went to England for the same reason that we went to Vancouver.
Right, of course, yeah. And then we had, in the middle of that, we had Perversions of Science, and there was something else, wasn't there?
Now, did you work on
Weird World? Didn't we
Perversions?
do
Weird World, that's
Weird
right.
World.
Yeah.
Oh wait, Weird World. Oh boy, Weird World was
Weird. It was a weird world.
I guess what happened there was we had written a script and there was a budget, but the two never met each other until just before we started the prep. And I get a call from F.A. Miller saying, we need to talk because we have, I think it was like, it might have been like $900,000 was the whole budget. And the script penciled out to 2.7. It was like, we just wrote whatever we wrote. We never thought about a budget, we just
Budget? Who does budgets these days?
yeah, and there was no concept of maybe it was a little more than $900,000. I think it was like maybe it was $1.9 million and
was that the Bill Malone? Did Bill Malone direct that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So what we in order to get the script then to fit the budget, we had to completely rethink everything. And Bill said, I could do the whole show if you pay for a Steadicam operator for the run. I can do it, and that's what we did, and that's how we did like a ridiculous number of pages a day because hey, Bill had a great attitude about it.
Well, he was really good like that.
Oh, he
could pound out footage. Man.
He was, and it looks better than it deserves to look. Although
he was a really interesting energy. He always brought so much to the show.
Love his episodes.
Oh man, what a creative individual.
He always traveled with his own anamorphic lenses.
Yes, I remember in that.
And that's how he achieved some of those.
That's right.
Some of those really cool looks he accomplished using his anamorphic lenses, and it was his second Crypt episode, the one he did, I think it's only Skin Deep. It's Sherry Rose plays a girl with a mask. So you made her.
Oh yeah, that one. Yes, right.
And Peter Onorati is
right.
He meets her at a party, and he's kind of a rough guy. Goes back to her place. This really skanky, weird, industrial loft. Oh, it was just such a haunting episode. And Sherry is great.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just
a good
wonderful in it. And the reveal at the end when you realize it's her face.
And Bill had a lot to do with that face.
Oh, it's such a good episode.
He was he was so hands-on in that show. And you're right about the lenses. He had a very special lens he used for that, as I now remember. He would drive around with a trunk full of lenses, just like Billy Zane would drive around with a trunk full of wigs. All these guys run around with trucks full of their production stuff. That's pretty funny. But yeah, that was actually another thing, is that the people that you would meet on that show. I went on for years afterwards working with Gary Fleeter. I'm still working with Gary Fleeter.
How is
Gary's the same. He is the exact same guy. He looks the same. He sounds the same. I think he's got a painting in his attic. I don't know what's going on. I mean, he's super healthy. He and Boda, I think, go surfing together.
Huh.
So yeah.
Where do they like to surf?
Along the equator is my understanding, with some solar panels. I don't know. I didn't pry. I'm presuming somewhere in Southern California.
I
don't know.
thought on Melrose.
On the World Wide Web is.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes, it's very nice, very safe there. Shark
Yeah,
can't eat you.
But all those directors, I just kept working with, like, most of them actually.
Yeah.
I don't think I pissed one of them off. I pissed you guys off, but I don't think I pissed the director. Well, I guess I pissed Gil Adler, the director, off a couple times when I didn't
Only a couple
show,
of times, though. That wasn't too bad.
So
You were great. No, you were great. It was totally the fault of either me sleeping, which rarely happened.
I was going to say
Or-
sleeping. What are you doing that for? We're not paying you to
I
sleep.
know. If I ever slept or had a weekend, I'd get in trouble. Or if I had a meal.
a complete change of pace, Todd.
Yeah.
Is there a movie monster you hate?
Oh God, yeah. There's many monsters I hate. That's
What do you
part of the
hate?
job,
Let-
actually.
Let's start with what you hate.
Oh Lordy. Boy, I people that know me know that I like to mix practical and digital effects together, because I think, not that I'm not one of those people that says all CG sucks. I'm not that. I think it's a great tool, but
I'm glad
it
to hear
drives me
you say this.
crazy. Well, it drives me crazy when it does suck.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
even can suck today. Like you look at movies like The Mummy, the Brendan Fraser Mummy,
Yeah.
was right at that time where they hadn't quite figured out their pixels yet, and it's a good movie, but it kind of dies because the monsters are just not.
So how not to make a monster movie?
Yeah, no disrespect to because I know that all the artists were at the top of their game at the time, but
Oh,
it was
sure,
just,
sure.
it's like Van Helsing, if you remember that movie,
Yeah.
Stephen Sommers movie, I think.
Yeah.
Similar kind of thing. They all kind of bit off more than they can chew, and might have been really great then. Twister is another example. It was a really great movie then, but you watch it now, that cow that's flying through the air has got a bunch of sharp triangle shapes.
That's true.
and
That's
stuff,
true. That's
So
true.
it's just, any monster that doesn't have a soul. Monsters, like, as you guys know, I mean, you need to have characters. They can't just be scary brow, green face, and fangs. They have to actually have, I hate to say it, but
that's well
they need a
put.
backstory.
Well, but it's even technologically, it's even worse today because, I've had people look shot by shot of a sequence and say, wait a second, that didn't happen. That didn't work, but you didn't see it when we ran this whole scene.
Right.
But
Yeah, that's very
they
true.
now have the capability of looking at it shot by shot and critiquing
laboring
it.
over it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And watching it over and over again. Yeah, that's very true. And the other side of that coin is there's a lot of people on the production and post-production side that feel they know what should be best for that monster. And so you get like all these different inputs into one design. And so you see that quite a bit, actually, where you get and this is another credit to you guys. You guys just let me do whatever, and you'd see my drawings and approve them and guide me if I was really way off. But it wasn't like Joel and Bob and Walter and everybody was chiming in, because that would have been impossible, especially because we didn't really have the communication tools. But now that we have the communication tools, I have like some approval emails that are like 35 people.
Yeah.
And it's a TV show. I need to make this tomorrow.
Well,
So
we don't talk about this much, but we had all of those people, all those executive producers had development people, and all those development people would read the scripts and give us notes, and
Right.
and we were supposed to react to the notes, and finally we had to say at one point, listen guys, we're going to look at the notes, we appreciate the notes, and we're going to take a look, and if we think they're good, we're going to use them, but we're the arbiters of the taste for the show, not you. And so, we're not going to use everybody's every thought. And
That's the
really
whole
what we did
point.
from that was to really have deep conversations with the directors.
Good.
We really wanted to support the directors and get the vision that they wanted, because that's what we were buying. We were buying, why are you going after a Billy Friedkin or John Frankenheimer unless you want their vision?
Yeah,
And so
that's
we would
that's
have
exactly right.
conversations with them and say, okay, what do you see? What do you want to do? How can we help you? And again, we have two enemies. It's time and money. We both
Yeah.
share those enemies. So how can we help? What can we do? And
Well,
I
and
think,
you guys were honest to the directors about that.
yeah,
If they had an idea that fit that, great. If you were always, there's another mantra that I remember you telling me, is we don't write something we can't produce.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was because I do so many things that they always, they tell me after I read it, oh, we got $2 million. Like, for the
Yeah.
effects budget.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, no, that's everything. And it's like, don't write, the Titanic.
Yeah.
And that was Tales in a very smart way. I mean, when we did go breakage or whatever, that would be things like Showdown or, a
Yeah.
Zemeckis episode, a special moment. But, you were really, that was the shot list meeting. You were really good about getting them to be that prepared to come to you before they went to the camera. And I thought that was great because you could really weed out a lot of bullshit.
And none of them really, when I think back on it, maybe initially they resented it or was like, wait a minute, who are you asking me to tell you my shots? John Frankenheimer, Billy Friedkin, on and on. And yet when I did
Walter Hill.
but when I did it, they really dug it. I mean, because I think our approach wasn't, we're the leaders of the pack and you need to make sure that we're satisfied. Ours was more collaborative in saying, okay, that's a really good idea for a shot. How do we accomplish that? I mean,
Right.
Do we have the time? Do we have the money? Or how can we steal some money from here or there and compromise something else? Because we agree this is a great image and this is a great thing that you want to get, and therefore we want to get it.
Well, and I think that really mattered to the directors, because we were getting everybody for the longest time for no money, and they had, you guys were producers in every sense of the word, but it always felt like you were creative first and we will figure it out rather than budget first.
That has to be the way it is.
It does have to be.
We don't make budgets. We people don't go to movies and say, gee, for $3 million, that's a great movie, but for $10 million, that's awful. They either like it or they don't like it. And something, you don't care how much it costs.
Good
so
point.
Really, that's what you have to do. And what you have to be very cognizant of is that you're competing with a lot more money than you have on other projects.
Right.
And you're competing equally. So you don't have as much money, but when it comes to the analysis of what you've done, that you're up against the best. So you've got to be the best for what you have.
Or it doesn't matter.
Or it doesn't matter. Or don't do it.
Keenan Ivory Wayans once told me that. He said, if it isn't funny, it doesn't matter how much it costs.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was, he said it right in front of his producer too, which pissed him off. Sorry, Alan.
It's funny. It's something occurred to me that Tales from the Crypt kind of anticipated streaming in that we were the feature world and the TV world cohabitating together, which is exactly what the streaming world is. I mean, anybody, there's no wall anymore between film and TV.
Right.
There can't be anymore because there's no film business anymore. It's completely dead unless you're making 3 movies. So, of necessity, the TV world is experiencing a golden age, but it's that they're simply doing what we were doing on Tales.
Sort of. They're trying. That mantra that I just mentioned a few minutes ago about, don't write it if you can't produce it. Don't try to cram a whole shitload into the small package you have.
Yeah.
I see it every damn day on shows that are, mainstream shows with like mainstream talents, and they will get to the concept meeting with a script that's not
well, I can't help anyone's process.
No, I know. I just
screw this up.
I'm telling you to call them right now. No, it just kind of blows my mind sometimes that things would never have gotten to that point on Tales. We did some pretty weird shit, but we never did anything that we couldn't.
But it was preparation. One of. And I think
there was no preparation.
But I would chalk some of it up to the fact that because we were always it was an anthology, and so we had no standing sets. There was nothing that we could rely on. There were no regular actors.
Nothing was
reinvent the wheel every week.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true. Actually, Greg Melton secretly reused the same basement for 4 seasons. No, I'm kidding.
There you go. It was
I don't doubt that he did. I don't doubt that he did, and we never knew it.
Didn't we have like a basement in like every episode? There was always a basement in a Tales of the Crypt episode. Greg and I used to always joke about that. It's
Well,
like,
we did keep that outside. That script we traveled around from place to
What
place.
are you trying to say, Todd? You don't like basements, huh?
No, it just it's like creepy movie 101 kind of thing. It just always cracks me up whenever I see Greg. For some reason, I'm like, oh, he's the guy that designs awesome basements. Obviously, way much more, but yeah. Anyway.
What are you working on right now, Todd?
Well, the Vancouver shop does The Good Doctor, Nancy Drew, a lot of TV stuff right now. John Voight feature. We're doing, I told you, Yellow Jackets.
Yeah.
Toronto does The Boys and the Umbrella Academy. And I'm
so you've got 2 studios up in Canada.
Yep.
You've got Vancouver and Toronto.
Yeah, I speak Canadian. I'm fluent Canadian now.
As we know.
Can't you tell?
Didn't we do this interview in Canadian? Wait a second.
Actually, yeah, it's actually a little cheaper for you.
Well, actually, this interview, 2 of you are in Canada, right?
That's true. Actually, it's not cheaper for Gil. He's paying the same flavor. You, my friend, have saved 20% or 15%. But yeah, it's Gil and I strangely are in the same town. We actually didn't move to the same town for each other. At least I don't think so. I think I was here first.
So says you.
I'm going to just step away from this.
We live far apart, far away apart. We don't bump into each other that often. But we actually do try to get coffee every so often.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, which is great, which is kind of funny because I feel like our life has turned into a podcast where we're constantly like, oh yeah, hey, remember that time?
I noticed on your IMDb page, Todd. Now, people, there's all kinds of stuff on our IMDb pages that what the hell that is and how that got there.
Yeah.
You've got a couple of directing projects.
So
yeah. There's one. Is that an actual happening thing?
There was a thing called Leech that's still out there.
Yeah.
It was it got a little more traction before COVID, and then it just kind of pooped out a little bit. I reworked the script, and it's kind of like we need to get back to it. The financiers claim to still be interested, but it's directing.
So all right,
feature is tricky. So that would have been my first feature. So, I direct a lot of second unit and effect stuff.
Who should pressure be put on to get this going again? Who should social media be terrorizing?
Travis Tritt, actually.
Travis.
Okay. Travis, I actually hooked Travis into that project years ago, so I haven't talked to him in a while. It was before he got kind of internet famous recently. Of course, we know Travis from Dr. Horror, which we did with
Larry.
That's right,
Larry's
ago.
Episode.
And I just, for whatever reason, I love Travis. He's a really sweet guy. We have completely different thinking on politics and stuff, but we never talk about it. And
I should say by Larry, we mean Larry Wilson, the screenwriter and director, Larry Wilson.
Correct.
Beetlejuice, Larry Wilson.
Yeah, that's right. And anyway, so I did a couple of music videos for Travis, and then a couple of years ago when that thing was up and running, I called his manager up, and we got him, involved in the project because it's a musical basically. And it's got some traction, and then I got busy, and then everybody else got busy. So I'll give them a call after this podcast, I promise. But there's other things that I'm doing on that level. There's always a ton of things in the hopper.
Well, good. It is good to see you. It's good to see you, and it's good to know that you're feeling better.
Yeah, it's great.
And beginning to put some weight back on.
I'm not really into that. I got rid of all those clothes. So unless you want to see me run around naked.
No. But I mean, get to the place where you feel healthy.
Oh yeah, I got muscle, man. I'm like,
okay, cool.
I'm like lifting weights and
good.
I'm like I'm way far from perfect. I'm not like Gil. I'm not like ripped. But I'm getting.
When was the last time you had your eyes checked?
That is one thing that really has changed quite a bit. That shit fucked my eyes up.
Clearly,
everything up. But, yeah.
Based on your last comment, clearly.
I thought you would have liked that. But yeah, no, I appreciate you guys caring so much. That's really sweet of you. It's been a long, lonely path.
We have plans for you that we won't talk about now, but we have plans for you.
And you shredded them when you heard I was sick. I love that. Thank you, my friends. It's so many of my friends have done that.
As always, Todd, it's such pleasure just to sit in it and shoot the shit with you.
It's good hearing you guys too. I can't wait to hear what you guys are gonna do on Halloween.
That makes 2 of us.
Three
of us, 4 of us. I don't know how many.
Actually,
However many there are of us.
we can actually say what we're doing Halloween.
Yeah, actually we can, because this is going to go well. This will be I think just about that run at the same time, because we wanted to schedule this. This is our Halloween podcast. So this is Roundabout Podcast, and you can still listen to it anyway. We're going to be doing our first, because I bet it's not going to be our last, our first How Not to Have a Hollywood question and answer. God, I knew I'd screw that up. Take two. Our first How Not to Have a Hollywood Q&A with Alan and Gil, hosts of the How Not to Make a Movie podcast.
And you can ask anything you like.
Oh, can I phone in?
Surely.
You
know where all the bodies are buried. You help bury them.
Yeah, exactly. I want to see if you'll reveal. I'll reveal mine if you reveal yours.
We thought it would be fun, for Halloween. Do it live.
Absolutely.
And let people call and ask whatever they like to ask.
They can ask whatever they want. I ain't saying we're going to answer everything, but hey, ask whatever the hell you want, people.
I love it. I'm going to tweet all 10 of my friends.
October 30th at noon, live.
October 31st at noon Pacific.
October 30th, Sunday.
30th.
Okay.
October 30th. Yes, that's right.
On our YouTube channel.
Wow. Holy moly.
That's right.
All right. Well, you heard it here, folks. There you go.
Thank you, Todd. And
my pleasure, guys.
Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you all next time. The How Not to Make a Movie podcast is executive produced by me, Alan Katz, by Gil Adler, and by Jason Stein. Our artwork was done by the amazing Jody Webster, and Jason Jody, along with Mando, are all the hosts of the fun and informative Dads from the Crypt podcast. Follow them for what my old pal the Crypt Keeper would have called terrific crypt content.